She doesn't fall out of love with you because you give too much. She loses respect for you. Sit with that for a moment. You've done everything by the book. You show up on time. You notice the small details. You listen even when you're running on empty. You reshuffle your schedule, silence your own needs, and swallow your pride. Also, she'll see you as one of the good ones. And still, somehow, you end up feeling like white noise, an afterthought, someone she only reaches out to when it's convenient or when she's lonely. Here's the hard truth: nobody wants to say out loud kindness with no boundaries isn't strength. It's self-erasure. And in that slow fading of your presence, she stops seeing you as necessary and starts treating you as optional. But what if there's one invisible habit, so subtle and so automatic, that quietly drains your value every time you do it? Not yelling, not disappearing, not playing games. Something far more ordinary and far more corrosive. Today we're exposing that hidden pattern and swapping it out for 8 timeless Stoic principles that don't just rebuild your dignity, they make her feel your absence like a pull of gravity. This isn't manipulation. It's reclamation. It's about becoming the kind of man whose silence carries more weight than begging ever could. If you've ever felt like a ghost in a relationship where you poured everything in, stay with me. This could be the moment everything turns around. And if this resonates, hit subscribe, because what's coming next isn't just advice, it's a reset for how you show up in love, in life, in power. Let's get into it. Why 1. Stop over-explaining yourself. Certainty is magnetic like sex. Let's be blunt for a second. Have you ever found yourself firing off 3 follow-up texts just to clarify why you skipped dinner? Or mentally rehearsing a 5-minute speech before telling her you need some room? Or worse, apologizing for something that wasn't even your fault, just to keep things calm? If so, you're far from alone. But here's what you might be missing: every time you over-explain, you're signaling to her subconscious, I'm not sure I've earned my place here. And whether or not she's doing it deliberately, women pick up on that. Not because they're being harsh, but because people are wired to trust certainty. Think about it. When someone speaks with steady, calm clarity, no hedging, no backpedaling, you lean in. You listen. You assume they know exactly what they're doing. But when someone stumbles through excuse after excuse, qualifier after qualifier, you start to check out. Not out of malice, but because uncertainty reads as instability. And instability doesn't earn respect. It invites dismissal. Now let's turn to the Stoics, not as dusty old philosophers, but as sharp emotional tacticians. Seneca once said, we suffer more in our heads than we ever do in reality. That's precisely what over-explaining is: pre-suffering. You're trying to manage her reaction before she's even had one. You're bargaining for your worth before she's questioned it. But a centered man doesn't bargain for his presence. He simply states it. Picture this: instead of saying, I know I've been distant, I'm so sorry, work has just been crazy and I never meant to shut you out, I swear. You just say, I needed space to recharge, I'm back. No justifying, no groveling, just plain truth. That one shift changes something deep. It tells her, and it tells you, that your choices don't need her sign-off to be valid. And ironically, that's exactly when she starts giving your words more weight. Every sentence starts to carry substance. Every decision feels deliberate. You stop being static in the background. You become the signal. This has nothing to do with being distant or withholding. It's about trusting yourself enough to hold your ground without propping it up with excuses. So ask yourself, what are you explaining today that you could simply live out tomorrow? Your actions don't owe anyone an apology, and your truth doesn't need a script. Stop bargaining for your worth. If you're finished groveling for approval and ready to speak with calm, unshakable certainty starting now, drop a comment signal over static. Let this community know you're holding the line. Ask 2. Stop being available around the clock. Scarcity builds respect. Let's talk about a quiet destroyer of a man's value, one that most men never notice until the damage is done. It isn't laziness. It isn't dishonesty. It's being endlessly reachable. You answer every message the instant it arrives. You cancel your own plans the moment she mentions a rough day. You're on call emotionally, logistically, even energetically, like your whole purpose is to circle around her moods. And here's the cruel twist: the more reachable you are, the less valuable you become. Why? Because desire is built on contrast. We don't want what's always within grabbing distance. We want what feels earned, scarce, meaningful. Imagine gold flowing endlessly out of every faucet. Would it still mean anything to anyone? Of course not. Endless supply kills desire. This isn't about playing games or acting hard to get, that's a cheap trick, and women can spot manipulation from a mile off. This runs deeper. It's about building a life so rich, so aligned with your purpose, that your time naturally becomes sacred, not because you announce it, but because it's obviously true. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who governed Rome while journaling from war camps, once wrote that a man's value is defined by what he values. So ask yourself, what does constant availability actually say about you? That your peace is up for negotiation. That your goals can be put on hold. That her passing discomfort matters more than your long-term direction. And she won't read that as love. She'll read it as weakness. But when you pull back, not out of spite, not using silence as a weapon, but with a quiet loyalty to your own rhythm, something shifts. She notices the space you leave, not as rejection, but as intrigue. She starts wondering what you're up to, who you're becoming, why you don't need her right this second. And that curiosity, that's the gateway back to respect, because the man who's fully invested in building his own life, training, creating, reflecting, is the one she actually wants to be part of. Not because he's chasing her, but because he's already headed somewhere. So guard your time like the scarce resource it truly is. Say no without apologizing for it. Let replies wait when you're focused. Keep your plans sacred, even when she asks you to drop them, not to punish her, but to respect yourself. And watch what unfolds. She won't drift away. She'll lean in with more intention, more appreciation, more priority. Abundance kills desire, but self-respect commands value. If you're done orbiting her every mood and ready to put your mission first, comment time is sacred. Let the world know your presence has to be earned. 3. Stop trying to fix everything. Presence beats rescue. Here's a truth that stings. Trying to fix her doesn't make you admirable. It makes you forgettable. She vents about a rough day at work, and you jump straight to solutions. She's overwhelmed, so you rearrange your entire week to help. She's sad, and you panic, scrambling to cheer her up or erase the pain like it's your job to keep her afloat. But here's what she actually feels in those moments: not gratitude, but suffocation. Why? Because rushing to fix her emotions sends a quiet message: I can't handle the full range of who you are. Your sadness or confusion makes me uncomfortable, so I need to control it. And that doesn't land as love, it lands as pressure. Stoicism offers something radical here, not action but stillness. Epictetus, born into slavery yet one of history's freest minds, taught that nothing worthwhile happens overnight. That includes healing. That includes clarity. That includes emotional resolution. She doesn't need you to solve her storm. She needs you to stand calmly at its center. Think back to the last time someone truly listened to you. No interruptions, no unsolicited advice, no attempt to fix it. Didn't that quiet feel stronger than any pep talk? Didn't you feel seen rather than repaired? That's the power of presence. A grounded man doesn't mistake support for salvation. He knows his job isn't to shoulder her burdens, but to stand beside her while she carries them herself. And in that space, something remarkable happens. She starts to trust him, not as a crutch, but as a pillar. Pillars don't shift. They don't buckle under pressure. They simply hold space, and in doing so, they invite strength into others. When you stop fixing, you give her room to be human, and paradoxically, that's when she starts leaning on you, not out of need, but out of genuine respect. She realizes this man isn't afraid of her mess. He doesn't require her to be flawless to stick around. He stays steady even when she isn't. And that steadiness is magnetic. So next time she opens up about a struggle, resist the urge to solve it. Instead say, that sounds heavy, I'm here. Then say nothing else. Just stay present. Watch her eyes soften. Watch her open up further. Watch her start seeking you out, not for answers, but for grounding. Because women don't fall for rescuers. They fall for men who are already whole. If you're ready to drop the rescuer act and choose calm, grounded presence over frantic problem solving, comment, be a pillar. Let the community see who's standing steady. E4. Stop chasing her attention. Silence creates gravity. Sick. Let's cut through the noise with one uncomfortable truth. The instant you start chasing her attention, you're handing her your power. She hasn't texted back in a few hours, so you send another message just to check. She seems distant on a call, so you double down with compliments and reassurance. She pulls back emotionally, and instead of giving room, you push harder, trying to win her over with more effort, more vulnerability, more proof you're worth her focus. But here's what actually happens: your pursuit turns into background static, and the louder you get, the less she hears you. Why? Because attention that has to be begged for loses its value the second it's given. It stops being genuine and starts being obligation. Deep down she knows it. So do you. Now bring in the Stoics, not as passive monks, but as masters of psychological leverage. Marcus Aurelius didn't beg his enemies for respect. He embodied it so fully that even chaos bowed to his composure. And Epictetus, who owned nothing but his own mind, taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that counts. So what's the right response when she pulls back? Not panic, not performance. Stillness, because silence isn't empty, it's potential. When you stop reacting to every shift in her energy, you open up space. And in that space, curiosity grows. She starts wondering why you're not chasing her. Is he okay? Does he not care anymore? Or does he care so much he trusts the two of you enough to wait? That uncertainty flips the entire dynamic. Now she's the one chasing clarity. She's the one reaching out, not because you demanded it, but because your absence made her feel the weight of your presence. This isn't manipulation. It's maturity. A man who doesn't need constant reassurance communicates one thing: my worth isn't tied to your current mood. And that's magnetic. Think about the most compelling people you've ever met. Were they the ones constantly checking if you liked them, or the ones so anchored in their own purpose that you couldn't help but want to be near them? Exactly. So next time she goes quiet, don't rush to fill the silence. Hold your center. Return to your mission. Let your life do the talking. Because the man who steps back from drama without anger, who stays focused while others scramble for scraps of attention, who lets silence carry the weight, is the man she can't ignore. If you're done chasing scraps of attention and ready to let your silence build real gravity, comment "hold your center." Let the community see who's stepping back into his power. S5 Stop chasing her approval. Your worth isn't up for debate. Let's name the invisible leash most men wear without even realizing it: the need for her approval. You might never say it out loud, but it shows up in small ways. You dress a certain way because you know she likes it. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny just to keep her smiling. You bury your opinions to dodge conflict. You measure your success by whether she's proud of you. And every time you do, you're quietly telling your own subconscious, I'm incomplete without her approval. But here's what Stoicism cuts through with precision: your worth was never up for debate. As Epictetus put it, it's not events that wound you, it's how you interpret them. And if your interpretation is, if she doesn't approve, I've failed, you've just handed her the keys to your self-worth. That's risky, not because she'll necessarily abuse it, but because a man chasing outside validation becomes emotionally leaky. He loses strength with every compromise. He trades who he is for acceptance. And over time, he becomes someone even he doesn't recognize. Now compare that to the Stoic ideal: a man whose inner compass is so steady that no one, not even the woman he loves, can knock it off course. That's not arrogance. That's sovereignty. When you stop chasing her approval, something unexpected happens. She starts offering it freely. Why? Because people gravitate toward certainty. When you hold your ground on your values, even when she disagrees, you give off a quiet confidence that can't be faked. You become a reference point instead of a reflection. She no longer sees you as someone trying to earn love. She sees you as someone who already embodies it and chooses to share it. And that changes everything, because now her praise isn't a lifeline, it's a bonus. Her criticism isn't a crisis, it's just her viewpoint. And your peace stays intact no matter her mood. That's Stoic strength at its core, living by an internal standard so high that outside noise can't drown it out. So ask yourself tonight, what part of yourself have you silenced just to keep her comfortable? What truth have you swallowed out of fear of her reaction? Take it back, not loudly, not defensively, but quietly, like coming home after a long time away. Because the moment you stop needing her to validate your worth is the moment she finally sees it. If you're ready to reclaim your emotional sovereignty and live by your own internal standards starting now, comment internal sovereignty. Let the community know who holds the keys to his own peace. S6 Stop compromising your standards. Boundaries speak the language of self, respect, secre. Let's face a quiet crisis in modern relationships: men giving up their standards to keep the peace. You brush off red flags because she's been through a lot. You put up with disrespect because everyone has bad days. You lower your bar for honesty, loyalty, emotional maturity, because you're scared she'll leave if you speak up. But what that really communicates is my peace matters less than her comfort. And once she senses that, even without words, your value drops. Not because she's malicious, but because human nature respects boundaries far more than it respects sacrifice. Think about it. When someone has clear lines around how they're spoken to, what they will and won't tolerate, where their time goes, you don't see them as difficult. You see them as trustworthy, solid, someone who knows exactly who they are. That's the power boundaries carry. Stoicism isn't about rigidity, it's about clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, during war, plague, and betrayal, that if it isn't right, don't do it, and if it isn't true, don't say it. That's not harshness, that's integrity. And integrity is magnetic, especially in a world full of men twisting themselves into knots just to be liked. When you stop compromising your standards, you do something powerful. You teach her how to treat you, not through lectures, but through your actions. She snaps at you unfairly. You calmly say you're happy to talk once things can be respectful. She flakes on plans at the last minute. You don't chase, you reschedule only if it fits your own rhythm. She crosses a line. You don't blow up, you pull back with dignity, letting your absence say more than anger ever could. And in that space, something shifts. She realizes this man isn't trying to control her, he's honoring himself, and if she wants him in her life, she has to meet him there. That's not an ultimatum. That's alignment. A woman doesn't lose interest in a man with boundaries, she gains respect for him. She feels safe around him. She sees him as a leader of his own life, not a follower in hers. And that's when she starts treating you like a priority, not out of fear, but out of real admiration. So ask yourself, what standard have you let slide just to dodge conflict? What line have you blurred because you thought love meant putting up with anything? Reclaim it, not with blame, but with quiet resolve. Because the man who stands firm in his truth is the one she can't afford to lose. If you're done tolerating disrespect and ready to let quiet resolve enforce your boundaries starting today, comment integrity over peace. Let the community see who's holding the line. 7. Stop reacting to her moods. Emotional independence is irresistible. Let's talk about one of the most invisible traps men fall into: emotional mirroring. She's upset, and you spiral. She's distant, and you panic. She's excited, and you ride that wave like it's oxygen. Her emotional state becomes your weather system, and without realizing it, you've outsourced your peace to her fluctuating energy. But here's what that does. It makes you emotionally dependent, and dependency doesn't inspire love. It breeds exhaustion. Women don't want a man who matches their chaos. They want a man who anchors it. This is where Stoicism shines, not as cold detachment, but as emotional sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire through betrayal, plague, and war, and yet his private journal reads like a masterclass in composure. Why? Because he grasped a core truth. You hold power over your own mind, not over outside events. Understand that, and you find real strength. Your strength isn't measured by how much you care. It's measured by how steady you stay when she isn't. When you stop reacting to her moods, when you refuse to let her emotional shifts dictate your worth or your actions, you become something rare, a safe harbor. Think about it. If every time she's stormy you either withdraw in anger or rush in to fix things, she learns one lesson: my emotions control him. But if instead you stay grounded, neither pulling away nor overcorrecting, she feels something new entirely. He's with me, but he's not lost in me. That's magnetic, because your presence stops being conditional on her mood. You show up in full integrity whether she's laughing or crying, close or distant. And that consistency builds deep trust. This isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about choosing which feelings you act on. A Stoic man feels things fully but responds wisely. He knows that reacting on impulse to her mood doesn't serve love, it serves fear. So next time she's upset, don't absorb it. Don't take it personally. Don't scramble to fix the atmosphere. Instead say calmly, I see you're going through something. I'm here when you're ready. Then return to your center. Keep building your life. Keep honoring your own rhythm, and watch what happens. She'll stop testing you with drama. She'll stop using silence as leverage, because she'll realize you're not going anywhere, and you're not falling apart either. You've become the rock. And rocks don't chase waves. They let the waves come to them. If you're done being an emotional mirror and ready to stand as an unshakable rock starting today. Comment be the anchor. Let the community know you hold your own peace. 8. Stop dimming your light. Confidence isn't loud, it's unshakable. Here's a heartbreaking pattern most men never notice until it's too late. They shrink themselves to make her comfortable. You downplay your ambitions because she seems intimidated. You hide your passions because they don't fit her world. You soften your opinions, mute your humor, or hold back your intensity, all in the name of keeping the peace. But what you're really doing is erasing yourself. And when you disappear, she doesn't feel safer, she feels bored. Because here's a truth nobody wants to admit: women aren't drawn to men who make themselves small. They're drawn to men who take up their full space with calm, clarity, and conviction. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be humble in the sense of erasing yourself. It asks you to be honest with yourself first. Seneca wrote that true happiness comes from enjoying the present without anxious dependence on the future, and you can't enjoy the present if you're constantly editing yourself to fit someone else's comfort zone. Real confidence isn't bragging or dominance. It's unapologetic alignment, living so fully in your truth that you don't need permission to exist. When you stop dimming your light, something remarkable happens. She doesn't feel threatened, she feels inspired, because your authenticity becomes a mirror. It shows her what's possible: a life lived on purpose, not performance. A man who doesn't twist himself for approval, but stands tall in his own skin. That kind of energy is rare. It's magnetic. It's unforgettable. Think about the men in history, or even in your own life, who left a lasting mark. Were they the ones who blended in, or the ones who stood out, not by shouting, but simply by being? Exactly. So ask yourself, where have you muted your own voice just to keep the peace? What part of your brilliance have you buried out of fear it might intimidate her? Bring it back, not aggressively, not defensively, but gently, like lighting a lamp in a room that's been dark too long. Because the moment you reclaim your full presence is the moment she realizes what she nearly lost. And that's when she stops treating you like an option and starts treating you like the priority you've always been. If you're done dimming your light and ready to stand tall in your own skin with unapologetic alignment, comment light reclaimed. Let the community see who's occupying his full space. Conclusion: the priority paradox. She chooses you when you choose yourself. Let's land this with a truth so simple it's easy to miss. You don't become a priority by trying to be one. You become a priority by refusing to be anything less than whole. Every point we've covered, over-explaining, constant availability, fixing everything, chasing attention, seeking approval, letting boundaries erode, reacting emotionally, dimming yourself, these aren't just habits. They're signals, quiet broadcasts sent straight from your nervous system to hers, saying, "I'm not sure I deserve to be here." And she believes it, not because she's cruel or shallow, but because your own behavior confirms it. But Stoicism flips the whole script. It doesn't ask you to win her over. It asks you to come home to yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule Rome by begging for loyalty. He earned it by embodying unwavering integrity, even in private, even when nobody was watching. Seneca didn't write his wisdom from a place of lack. He wrote from stillness, from clarity, from a life lived with purpose. And that's the invitation here. This isn't about tactics. It's about transformation. When you stop doing the things that shrink your presence, you don't just change how she sees you, you change how you see yourself. And that shift ripples outward. She notices your calm. She feels your consistency. She senses your inner order even when her world feels chaotic. And in that space, something profound happens. She stops treating you like an option, because she can no longer picture her life without your grounded presence. Not because you demanded it, not because you performed for it, but because you became someone impossible to ignore, not through noise, but through depth. So remember this: women don't prioritize men who chase priority. They prioritize men who are already the priority in their own lives. Your job now isn't to convince her. It's to live so fully, so authentically, so unshakably that your value becomes undeniable. Stand in your truth, protect your peace, honor your time, speak with clarity, love without losing yourself, and watch, without saying a word, how she begins to treat you like the man you've always been. She chooses you when you choose yourself. Stop begging for priority. If you're ready to come home to yourself, claim your transformation, and live with real depth, comment choose yourself. And if you're done shrinking and ready to lead from the inside out, hit subscribe and share this with a man who needs to remember his worth. Stay strong, stay grounded, and never forget your worth was never up for negotiation.